Officials say there's now more water in Tulare Lake than in some of the state's reservoirs, but fears have eased of extreme flooding in surrounding communities.
Several atmospheric rivers this past winter brought Tulare Lake back to life.
In a remarkable turn of events, Tulare Lake, once a vanishing vestige of California's past, has re-emerged with astonishing speed. The lake, which had been drained for agricultural purposes, is now making an unexpected and dramatic return. Now, Tulare Lake is rising fast. It's coming. This resurgence, fueled by an unprecedented series of storms and record-breaking rainfall, has captured the attention of communities, experts, and environmentalists alike. Join us as we dissect the lake's history, the causes and challenges posed by the rapid rise of Tulare Lake, and how its one diverse ecosystem is now long gone and dying out. The history of Tulare Lake. Tulare Lake was once known as the biggest body of water west of the Mississippi. The High Sierra rivers flowed freely for thousands of years, eventually emptying into the San Joaquin Valley without any obstructions. In 1776, Spanish captain José Joaquín Moraga was captivated by the awe-inspiring Kings River. His son Gabriel named it Rio de los Santos Reyes, or River of the Holy Kings, in 1806. Little did they know that California would transition from Spanish to Mexican rule, and 44 years later, become the 31st state. This mighty river, fueled by annual Sierra snowmelts, would often burst its banks for miles as it surged unimpeded into the San Joaquin Valley. This massive flow of water formed what was once called Tulare Lake, named by the Spanish after the extensive native tula reeds that lined its shores. 046, Ruacho 56. Tulare Lake was enormous, stretching over 690 square miles in wet years, covering towns like Corcoran and Stratford, and almost reaching Lemoore. This was the scale of Tulare Lake over 150 years ago. However, for the past century, Tulare Lake has mostly been dry. This transformation was due to years of diversion by irrigation projects starting in the 1860s, followed by the construction of dams, levees, and canals that controlled the flow of the Kings River. In 1938, fierce rainstorms nearly filled Tulare Lake before Pine Flat Dam was built, and in 1983, a wet year managed to fill much of the old lake, reaching the outskirts of Corcoran. The history of the Tulare Lake region dates back millions of years, forming a great basin between the Sierras and the coastal range. This geological process, combined with millennia of rain and mountain runoff, created the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi. The last time water flowed into the San Joaquin River from Tulare Lake was in 1878, marking the beginning of a long decline in the lake's volume. The Kings River was the primary water source, and in wet years before 1878, Tulare Lake could cover an area as large as 30 townships, or 1,080 square miles. Native Americans settled in the Tulare Lake Basin thousands of years ago, benefiting from the lake's abundant wildlife and plants. The Yokuts, particularly the Valley Division, shaped the landscape to meet their subsistence needs and cultural values. From 1850 to 1880, Tulare Lake's size fluctuated. At its highest surface elevation of 225 feet in 1852, Stratford and Corcoran would have been underwater, with Waukena submerged by a foot. The shoreline would have been miles away from Pixley, Early Mart, and several other towns.
The Central California lake that returned to this size right here for the first time in 40 years.
Before the influence of agriculture on the mountain rivers, this part of the San Joaquin Valley transformed into a marsh each spring, teeming with tule elk, antelope, geese, and various waterfowl. This basin marked the endpoint of several significant rivers, the Tule, Kaweah, Kings, and White Rivers. Out of these rivers sprang the shallow lake, known as La Laguna de los Tulares by Spanish explorers. It covered over 1,200 square miles, surpassing the Great Salt Lake in size. Yokut hunters would skillfully fish for salmon, perch, and sturgeon on rafts and canoes crafted from sturdy tule reeds. Meanwhile, the women waded into the waters to harvest clams and mussels. The bounty was so immense that newcomers named the area Mussel Slough, and in the 1870s, commercial fishermen navigated the lake on schooners and steamers, hauling terrapin turtles, a prized delicacy in San Francisco restaurants. Visitors were forever struck by the thunderous arrival of the large birds. In 1880, as a reclamation effort, the state legislature permitted newcomers to purchase marshland for a mere $2.50 an acre, with a refund of $2 if they assisted in constructing a levee system. This sparked a decades-long rush of sandlappers, a term used to mock the farmers cultivating swampland. Though Tulare Lake still appeared on maps, it was largely a mirage. Now, the Bureau of Land Management oversees the Atwell Island Restoration Site, a 7,000-acre area south of Alpaugh. It's a crucial project for preserving native grassland, wetland, and alkali sink habitats, as well as protecting endangered animal species and supporting local history. The site is open for exploration without the need for reservations. But before it became a mysterious lake, life thrived here. Tulare's ecosystems, a spring sunrise over a vast lake in the southern Central Valley. The lake was surrounded by lush Tulare marshes, and the air was alive with the calls of blackbirds, the songs of marsh wrens, and the honks and chatter of geese and ducks. Organized groups of white pelicans and black cormorants skillfully caught an abundance of fish from the lake, including species like thicktail, hitch, blackfish, Sacramento perch, pike minnow, and sucker. Many of the larger fish would have just returned from their spawning journeys up the inflowing rivers and would feast on plentiful plankton, shrimp, insect larvae, and young fish. In the shallows, herons and egrets patiently hunted for frogs and other prey. Meanwhile, otters and beavers moved about busily, with otters occasionally diving to grab mussels from the lake bed, which they would devour at the surface. Tulare elk emerged from the willow thickets to drink from the lake and graze on the lush vegetation. Woven into this tapestry of life were the Yokuts people, roughly 19,000 strong, living along the lake's edge. They adapted to the changing water levels, moving between higher ground and the shoreline with the seasons and years. Using boats crafted from the buoyant tools, they harvested fish, turtles, frogs, and birds. The Yokuts hunted not only fish at the lake, but also ventured to the rivers during the spawning migrations of pike minnow, suckers, hitch, and other native species. In certain years, they even encountered spring-run Chinook salmon and steelhead in the Kings River, adding to their bountiful harvest. This immense aquatic ecosystem was a paradise for those who called it home for millennia, but it vanished swiftly after the arrival of Euro-Americans in California. The newcomers displaced the Yokuts people and drained the lake to create temporary farmland. Our understanding of Yokuts' life comes from fragments gathered at archaeological sites, early explorer and settler accounts, and retrospective interviews with surviving natives. One particularly remarkable account comes from Thomas Jefferson Mayfield. As a boy, he was entrusted to the care of the Choinumi band of the Yokuts, who still resided by the lake from 1850 to 1862. His reminiscences offer a unique glimpse into how the lake's abundant life was at the core of Yokut culture, involving a diverse range of methods for harvesting fish and turtles. Tulare Lake reappearances. Tulare Lake has made quite the comeback over the years. Yoey Moot, who knew the lake well, once warned researcher Frank F. Latta that it would return, and return it did. In 1938 and 1955, the lake flooded, leading to the construction of dams to manage the water flow. Even though it's usually dry, the lake pops up during heavy rains or snow melts, earning it nicknames like Phantom Lake, the lake that will not die, or even California's Zombie Lake. Estimates suggest that Tulare Lake could hold twice as much water as the proposed Temperance Flat Dam at a fraction of the cost. The Tachi Yokuts and other groups are working hard to bring the lake back for good, with reasons ranging from environmental concerns to reclaiming Native American lands. The lake has made several comebacks, showing up in 1969, 1983, 1997, 1998, and most recently in 2023.
Tulare Lake is back, a ghost lake with real...
The winter storms of 1997 brought Tulare Lake back to life, yet it was the prolonged spring snowmelt of 1983 that left an indelible mark in living memory. Over 100,000 acres of valuable farmland were submerged under its relentless embrace. Dealing with such a massive influx of water posed a considerable challenge. Some of it naturally seeped into the ground, replenishing aquifers, a much-needed boon, especially in an area grappling with severe groundwater overpumping. Another portion of the water simply evaporated under the scorching sun of the valley. However, the majority lingered, requiring concerted efforts to be removed from the basin and redirected into the San Joaquin River. The lake's water levels reached such unprecedented heights that it spurred an extraordinary feat of adventure and determination. Bill Cooper and John Sweetser embarked on an incredible journey, kayaking a staggering 450 miles in just 11 days. Their odyssey took them from the heart of central Bakersfield to the iconic San Francisco Bay. Setting out, they navigated the coursing currents of the Kern River, surmounted the expanse of Tulare Lake, and continued their arduous journey upstream along the Kings River. Eventually, they made their way through the intricate waterways of the Fresno Slough, finally arriving at the mighty San Joaquin River. From there, they enjoyed the downstream flow, ultimately arriving at the Delta and the sprawling waters of San Francisco Bay. This remarkable expedition stands as a testament to the indomitable spirit of exploration and the boundless potential of human adventure. Bill Cooper and John Sweetser's remarkable achievement remains etched in the annals of aquatic escapades. Executing this task was no small feat. It demanded substantial pumping resources and a considerable amount of time. Following the 1983 snowmelt event, it took nearly 2 years of determined labor to reinstate the dry lake bed to a state where farming activities could recommence. The process stood as a testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of those who call this fertile valley home. Then, in June 1998, a heavy winter brought the lake back, causing about $100 million in damage to crops. Now in 2023, thanks to a series of storms, over 114,000 acres of the lake reappeared. This forced some communities to evacuate and led to the flooding of many farm buildings and homes. Parts of Alpaugh and Allensworth were even under evacuation orders due to concerns of potential flooding. To manage the situation, some floodwaters were diverted, and the Kern National Wildlife Refuge, about 4 miles south, got its full water allocation. These wetlands are vital for bird habitats, especially as part of the Pacific Flyway. Let's expand on what went down. The 2023 resurgence. The reappearance of Tulare Lake in 2023 stands out as a remarkable event. Roughly every 15 years, after record winter storms or substantial spring snowmelt, the dams and ditches struggle to contain the rivers. It's at these moments that the great inland sea, or at least a hint of it, steers from its slumber. The history of this basin, located halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, has always had a distinctive character. Despite being technically a desert, receiving less than 10 inches of rain annually, it sits at the foot of one of the country's most generous watersheds, the Sierra Nevada snowpack. Tulare Lake's sudden reappearance in 2023 has brought about a conflict in one of California's most fertile agricultural hubs. The expanding waters are engulfing fields and orchards and encroaching on low-lying towns, sparking tensions among major agricultural landowners with a history of water disputes. 021 to 031.
The birds at Tulare Lake. The lake reemerged after decades due to historic rainfall in the Central Valley. Currently, it spans about 50,000 acres, but without proper outflow, diseases like avian botulism.
Communities like Alpaugh and Allensworth are worried about their homes being overlooked for protection from rising waters. As the water overwhelms canals, debates arise over where the floods should be directed and which farmland should be submerged first. In satellite images, the old lake bed stands out as a darker, grayish area amidst the farmland patches. In the days before river damming, the lake could stretch for 790 square miles, 4 times the size of Lake Tahoe, with depths of 30 feet. Over a century later, members of the Santa Rosa Rancheria of the Tachi-Yoku tribe reside near what was once the lake's north shore. The tribe's leaders have agreed to diversions that will channel some of the floodwaters onto their lands, easing pressure on the system while helping to recharge groundwater. The lake's rise is just a very small reminder of what was once here, said Leo Cisco, the tribe's chairman. The Phantom Lake, which the tribe calls Pa'ashi, remains central to its spiritual beliefs. Its traditional songs include passages that say, "When the water rises," that's the lake telling us, "Okay, it's time for you guys to get out of here now," said Robert Jeff, the tribe's vice chairman. They take it as a sign to pack up and leave. The tribe heads to the mountains and neighboring villages and waits till the water levels recede. They don't mind moving to higher grounds, but they also refuse to give up. Resilience against all odds. On March 21st, 2023, floodwaters continued to surge toward the small rural community of Allensworth in Tulare County as a new storm arrived overnight on Tuesday. Community spokesperson Coyote Kadara warned that the rain and runoff from nearby streams posed a threat to turn Allensworth into an island. Those residing in the eastern part of town were compelled to evacuate. However, some residents, including Kadara, chose to stay back and safeguard their properties. He advised those staying behind to ensure they had enough supplies to last at least a week. The flooding intensified in the southwest part of Tulare County after a waterway breach. Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreau confirmed breaches at up to 5 locations. Efforts were made to patch them up, but they proved unsuccessful against the volume of water. As a result, the water surrounded the communities of Alpaw and Allensworth. Residents in Allensworth had been working diligently since the weekend to prevent water from reaching their community. Despite their efforts, the runoff from streams like White River, Deer Creek, and Pozo Creek flowed continuously, draining into the Tulare Lake bed, along with other rivers like the Tool River, Kaweah River, and Kings River. While some roads remained open for Allensworth and Alpaw residents due to evacuation orders, it was uncertain how much longer they would stay accessible. The evacuation order affected approximately 1,000 people in these 2 rural communities. Evacuees were directed to the Tipton Memorial Building, serving as a temporary evacuation point. However, many in Allensworth were hesitant to leave, having already attempted to mitigate the water themselves. Over 100 residents attended a public safety meeting in Allensworth the previous Friday, expressing their need for more sandbags as a primary request. Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreau reported that crews were on alert for significant rain and worked tirelessly for a week, despite rising water levels in the waterways, lake, and spillway. Allensworth and Alpaw were situated at the former shoreline of Tulare Lake, once the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi. It was drained in the late 1800s for agricultural use and last reappeared during heavy precipitation in 1997. Established by Culmer Allen Allensworth. In 1908, Allensworth was once a thriving black agricultural town. It faced near demolition in the late 1960s, but was eventually recognized as a historic site, leading to the establishment of the Culver-Allensworth State Historic Park. The community has grappled with challenges such as drought and limited access to water sources, resulting in drinking water issues for the rural residents. Now, it contends with the rising waters of the Tulare Lake. The Allensworth Progressive Association emphasized in a press release that Allensworth is the community that refuses to die. Continuous atmospheric river storms have drenched the region, saturating the soil and turning fields into temporary lakes. This deluge is causing conflicts among neighboring property owners and raising concerns about how to handle the rising waters. Further troubles lingered because a massive snowpack in the mountains started to melt, potentially leading to months of downstream flooding. It's no surprise that California's climate swings, with periods of drought followed by excessive rainfall, were exacerbated by the effects of climate change.
Costs to local farmers and people living in the area. The Kings County Sheriff's Office today gave Action News an exclusive look at the flood damage from their new airboat.
The re-emergence of Tulare Lake could disrupt vital agricultural activities in the area, impacting the nation's supply of almonds, pistachios, milk, and fruit. The situation has led to disputes, frantic efforts to reinforce levees, and community tensions. The southern Sierra Nevada mountains are holding an unusually high amount of snow, raising fears of rapid flooding if it melts rapidly. More destruction. In the town of Corcoran in the Central Valley, a dirt levee faced the imminent danger of breaching from rising waters, prompting a request for emergency federal funding to raise it by a few feet. Governor Gavin Newsom visited Corcoran to assess the flood damage and warned that the worst was yet to come. as the flooded basin received an additional half-inch or inch of water each day. This weather extreme was identified as a manifestation of the climate crisis. Carla Nemeth, director of the California Department of Water Resources, highlighted that major flooding in the basin had last occurred in the 1980s, taking about 2 years for the water to either evaporate or be pumped out. Plans were being formulated to divert water before it reached the lakebed. Over 600 structures in Tulare County had already suffered damage from the flooding, with estimates of $60 million in agricultural losses from flooded crop fields. Proposed solutions included the installation of equipment to replenish underground aquifers, which had been depleted due to years of drought and excessive groundwater use. The state took measures to assist displaced residents by providing shelter and distributing flood prevention supplies such as sandbags, mussel walls, rock, and sand to reinforce rivers and levees. On the other hand, California was witnessing an unusually wet season following 2 decades of drought, with atmospheric rivers leading to near-record levels of snowpack and rainfall in various parts of the state. A study from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UC San Diego indicated that climate change was intensifying these storms, potentially increasing flood damage from $1 billion annually to over $3 billion annually by the end of the century. Meanwhile,
you drive down this area, you just never realize that this used to be a lake, and then here we are.
Tulare Lake was once known as the largest freshwater lake west.
temperatures in the San Joaquin Valley were projected to approach 100 degrees, and Yosemite National Park announced partial closures due to the threat of flooding from melting snowpack. This could inundate vast areas, significantly affecting the region's agricultural output. Efforts to combat the flooding are underway, but there are limits to what can be done with current infrastructure. The cost of returning the landscape to productivity after potential flooding could be substantial, running into billions of dollars. This crisis also poses a significant challenge for low-income communities, with many struggling to prepare for the impact. Cooperation and careful management will be crucial in navigating this ongoing natural disaster. But the people of Tulare can only come together if they truly understand what's at stake. The vengeance of Tulare. Presently, agricultural runoff waters 44,046 acres of farmland from 8 basins, including 4,740 acres of evaporation ponds. While this system boosts farmland and food production, it brings drawbacks. Many migratory birds that relied on Tulare Lake now use the evaporation ponds for various activities. However, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service discovered unsafe levels of selenium in the ponds, posing risks to both birds and the environment. Selenium accumulation in water can reach toxic levels, resulting in deformities and reproductive issues in wildlife, affecting the entire ecosystem. Even now, residents and farmers are bracing for severe flooding. The communities near the basin are witnessing a harsh reminder of the consequences of excessive rainfall. The record snowpack in the Sierra Nevada mountains in 2023 is melting and flowing down Kings River, potentially submerging the fertile farmland of the old Tulare Lake bed for up to a year. With Pine Flat Reservoir holding a significant portion of the lake's capacity, neighboring dams are grappling with similar challenges. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is working to balance the risk of downstream fluting with the need to release water and create a storage space. More rural communities surrounding the lake bed are in turmoil. This is a critical situation as the Central Valley supplies a substantial portion of the U.S. agricultural output and food production. If the floods persist, it could have a ripple effect on the nation's food supply. Unfortunately, nearly thousands of structures have been damaged and submerged because of the flood. Not to mention, up to 700 people were forced to mobilize and relocate. Even in the face of emergency and rescue teams, the available resources are slowly dwindling. The real issue lies with how once the water reaches the lake bed, removing it will be a daunting task. Come to think of it, removing the water would require astronomical amounts of money and effort. For now, the states know that they're in for heavy financial losses and a negative impact on the communities in the area. Many people think that removing the dam will solve the effects of the flood, but that would again lead to the destruction of communities and farmland.
We begin with breaking news this morning. Powerful wind and rain moving through our area right now.
The park is flooded.
The water almost up to my knees, and more water continues to flow.
Interestingly, the situation serves as a stark warning against further environmental manipulation. Environmental disasters occur not when humans ignore nature, but when they attempt to control it. It is crucial to act promptly to address the current crisis. In the long term, this critical moment should be a reminder to prioritize the preservation of nature and transition farming practices to the vast fertile acres scattered across the United States. But one question often haunts all those who hear of this lake. What resides underneath this eerie phantom lake? What lies below? The desert and arid lands of Tulare are once again blue, expansive and welcoming of avian life. But it's not just the birds that catch our eye. Now and then, remnants of the past occasionally emerge. From irrigation hoses that remind us of periods of irrigation, fence posts, or power lines breaking through the water's surface. These all serve as a reminder of what lies beneath. Fields of cotton, tomato, and pistachio, along with workers' residences, roads, and power infrastructure, are submerged underneath. To onlookers, it appears as an endless expanse of water, stretching as far as the eye can discern, but the bottom holds more secrets than it lets on. In the Central Valley, the lake's return brought with it the immediate challenge of managing the disaster, with the sheriff's office working tirelessly to assist those who inadvertently ventured into the flooded terrain. Tragically, small creatures were found deceased along the shoreline. Though the storms have passed, the lake endures. Now, fish have taken up residence, and birds now populate the skies and marshy regions surrounding the lake. The aftermath of the tempest is evident within the lake, which is presently considered private property and off-limits to the public. It's deemed unsafe for swimming or any recreational activities due to the presence of contaminants like diesel fuel, oil, manure, and various chemicals. Beneath the lake's surface lie extensive stretches of power lines and electrical equipment, vital for sustaining the region. Pacific Gas and Electric has undertaken a colossal effort to retrieve its equipment, employing dive teams, airboats, and helicopters for the operation. This has included the delicate task of disconnecting and airlifting massive electrical transformers. While the lake's waters have started to recede, experts anticipate it will maintain its current size for at least another year, well into 2024. They caution that further growth is possible, emphasizing the need for a coordinated flood response plan. To navigate the lake's debris-laden waters, the sheriff's office has acquired an airboat, recognizing it as the most effective means of patrol. For many, witnessing the reappearance of the lake is a poignant experience, especially for those who grew up hearing tales of this historic body of water. Visitors are encouraged to capture the moment with photographs, but a stern warning remains: stay out of the water. The lake, with its submerged remnants of a bygone era, is a powerful reminder of nature's resilience and its ability to reclaim what was once lost. So, are things moving back to normal? Not quite. What's happening now? In the vicinity of Tulare Lake, Evan King transports 15 ailing birds to an improvised animal clinic at the Kern National Wildlife Refuge. Here, veterinarians from the University of California, Davis, administer care to hundreds of birds afflicted with avian botulism within the clinic. Delicate birds are cradled and provided vital fluids and nutrients through slender tubes. According to Jamie Sherman, a veterinarian with the Oiled Wildlife Care Network, while there is no direct treatment for the toxin, the focus is on offering supportive care. To date, Sherman's team, which responds to animal crises across the state, has treated over 1,000 sick birds at the lake, successfully releasing nearly 700 back into their natural habitat. The primary strategies for combating the botulism outbreak in Tulare Lake involve the responsible disposal of deceased birds and the quarantine of affected ones. This crisis emerged in the wake of the lake's recent refilling, a phenomenon unseen for decades due to substantial rainfall and snowfall in California. As the water recedes, it blankets vast stretches of former farmland, creating conditions that have contributed to the outbreak. Factors such as urban expansion, agriculture, and habitat reduction have intensified the risk of avian botulism and other diseases, especially given the decline in North American bird populations over the last half-century. Avian botulism is a swift and lethal ailment for birds. It paralyzes them gradually, starting with flight impairment and eventually affecting their ability to breathe. The bacterium Clostridium, responsible for this form of botulism, occurs naturally in the San Joaquin Valley soil and thrives in its high temperatures, exacerbated by the stagnant lake water. Fortunately, the strain affecting birds is harmless to humans. However, the outbreak poses a significant threat to vulnerable migrating bird populations. Evan King and his team have already rescued almost 3,000 birds from Tulare Lake since late August, aiming to prevent a catastrophic loss akin to the 1983 outbreak that claimed the lives of 30,000 birds. Central California plays a crucial role in the Pacific Flyway, a migratory route spanning from Alaska to South America. Tulare Lake, once a vital habitat for these birds, now presents a double-edged sword due to the lurking botulism threat. While infected birds don't directly transmit the toxin, their carcasses attract maggots, potentially intensifying outbreaks. King emphasizes the importance of promptly removing carcasses to mitigate future bird losses. Although the rate of bird mortality has decreased in recent weeks, there remains concern about a potential resurgence next spring, especially if El Niño brings additional precipitation to the region. King's vigilant efforts on Tulare Lake serve as a frontline defense against this avian botulism crisis. All we can do is hope that we find a way to save ourselves and our ecosystems from Tulare's vengeance. So, let us know if Tulare Lake intrigues you too.